Alright, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. So today's video is a CGC bulk return. I wanted to get a feel for how it would go sending a larger number of cards to CGC. So most of this stuff is not very high-end. It's just kind of cards which either I thought could do very well on the subgrades front, getting like some pristine subs, stuff which CGC would grade nicer than other companies, and just things like that. So we have a total of, I think, 41 cards to go through. You actually have to submit at least 50 cards to CGC to use the bulk tier. But I sent with a friend who also added a few extra things in. So that's why there's only 41 cards in this video. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into the returns. Now the first card is actually one of the cards I sent in my previous CGC submission. You guys remember last time they did not grade the no-name error SDK Blue-Eyes Glossy Unlimited. So they never actually got back to me on the complaint that I sent them, unfortunately. So I had to crack the card and resubmit it raw to be able to get it graded. But they did at least admit this time that it's a legit error, so that was good. One thing which I thought was kind of fun on this. So what I would say is this is a Glossy Unlimited card with a Gold Eye of Anubis error. But how they labeled it was actually saying it's a first edition card. And then just missing multiple print layers. So it's missing the name, which you guys can see there, and then also the first ed stamp. Now, that's not actually correct just because the stamp in Yu-Gi-Oh, unlike Pokemon, isn't a stamp. It's part of the basic template of the card. So there's no way it can just be missed out like the name. But it was kind of cool to see them thinking a little bit, at least, about errors. And yeah, the grade on it is fair enough. I'd rather get like a 5 or a 6, honestly, than a 5.5. I just feel like that's a grade that no one wants to see on a card, but it's definitely the right kind of range for it, and I'm glad to have it slabbed up. It's definitely one of those cards which I just feel looks cooler in a slab than it does raw. Next card, I kind of just sent to bulk out the numbers. This is a Reaper of the Cards in Glossy Unlimited, and the reason I sent this, obviously it's not really worth anything, but I sent it because it was absolutely pack fresh, pristine condition, and we actually got the CGC 10, so that was cool. What's not so cool is that they labeled it as a 2010 reprint. I have no idea why they did that. This is an original Glossy Unlimited card. And it also got a 9.5 surface, which I'm not sure if it's worth like sending it back for review just to try and get that bumped. But it would be cool to have the CGC Perfect 10. I haven't hit that on any of my cards yet. But yeah, overall, it got a pristine 10, and I'm still happy about that because I'm sure if I send this to BGS, they'd find some reason not to give it a pristine, even though it deserves it. Right, next up is a foil line error, Tyrant Dragon in Unlimited. This wasn't a very minty card. It's got edgeware, cornerware, stuff like that. So yeah, again, I thought it would get somewhere in the 7 range, and it got a 7.5, so that's a solid grade, to be honest. I mostly chose to slab it just because I have a first ed slabbed as well with the foil line error, so they kind of look cool together. Next card is another foil line error. This one's kind of harder to spot, but you guys can see there's a line coming down the foil there. Again, this is Unlimited, Mystical Elf, and this one got a mint 9, which is pretty much what I expected. Mostly clean, but it has that little nick on the top edge. Next up, we have 2 of the same card. These are Unlimited Trial of Hells. Now, this is another thing where I know, like, it's in a way it's cool to see CGC putting in some effort with the labels, trying to label everything, you know, how it should be. This one they definitely got wrong. So it says Trial of Nightmare on the label, and then it says it's a Trial of Hell error. I don't know who decided to call it that, but that's just nonsense, to be honest. It's called Trial of Hell because it's an earlier print run. This is Glossy Unlimited, and so they hadn't changed the name from Trial of Hell to Trial of Nightmare yet. It's not an error, and it's kind of annoying that they labeled it as if it was. But yeah, it's not a big deal. I guess it's better than not acknowledging it as different from a normal Unlimited at all. And on this one, I think the grade is fair. In general, I feel like CGC gives out very few harsh grades, which is kind of refreshing compared to PSA and BGS. They're probably, if anything, more inclined to give generous grades, at least on my experience, compared to being too harsh on a card. So this is the second Trial of Hell. This got a gem mint, which is very cool. I have a PSA 10 of this already, so probably both of those Trial of Hells are for sale if anyone wants them. This one is the cleaner copy, so if one of them was going to get a gem, it makes sense that it would be this one for sure. And centering 9 I think is fair. It's shifted top to bottom. Next up we have some more unlimited LOB. This one is nothing special, it's just a regular 1.5 print, maybe a little bit faded. Now, they always call LOB unlimited, either glossy or wavy. I don't know why they do that. It, again, makes no sense because like probably only 2-3% of unlimited original print LOB is either of those things. But yeah, so this one's mislabeled. It should just be nothing. I would just call it original print if I was choosing what to label it. But yeah, they called it glossy, which it's pretty clearly not. But it is a cool card, especially with that slight fade to it. And we almost got a pristine 10 on this, quad plus plus 9.5. I think the surface on this honestly is very clean. So it would have been cool to get a pristine 10, but I'm not going to be too mad with that. It's still for sure going to be worth more than if I just sold it raw. So yeah, it's a decent card to have graded. And then I think this is another one from the same box, or like the same lot anyway. Just some unlimited LOB with a slight fade that I picked up a while back. This one's probably a little bit less faded than the swords, but with magic cards it doesn't show too much. It's pretty much just the color of this little border in the text. And yeah, this one got a quad plus 9.5. Again, very solid gem mint grade. I'm not too sure what that's worth. I'd guess that it's more than a PSA 9, but still quite a bit less than a PSA 10 or even a BGS 9.5. But yeah, this sub, like I said, I mostly just sent it for fun, just to kind of get a better feel for how CGC was grading. Because my first sub, I only sent a handful of cards, and that doesn't really give you a balanced idea of it. So yeah, this one is another one from the same lot. This one isn't faded. It's still just another 1.5 print, not wavy or glossy. And this one got a 9 centering, which I thought was a little bit harsh. I mean, okay, it's a bit shifted left to right, but it's not bad at all. And that's probably my main complaint for this submission, aside from the labels, which a lot of them are just not what they should be, is the centering grades are really unpredictable. So this card basically got good centering and it's a 9 centering. You guys will see some of the other cards that got 9 centering are like, you know, way off center. All right, one more faded card. This is a wavy faded card destruction. Kind of just another card I chucked in there to bulk out the numbers a bit. It's in decent shape though, so I figured it would get a 9. That's what it got. And yeah, this one is probably for sale if anyone wants it. Same with a lot of stuff in this submission. Not everything, but probably at least half of this submission I would be open to selling. Okay, next up, this is another thing where we had some labeling issues. So I sent these two first ed SDY commons, as you guys can see, and they're just labeled as normal SDY commons, but they're not. The reason I sent them is that they're samples. They're just a couple of extras I had, so I figured it might be fun to grade them. And they didn't label them as samples anywhere on the slab. So these are just, I mean, CGC doesn't actually have a pop report for Yugioh yet, but when they do, these are just going to be in there as ordinary SDY first ed commons, which I find kind of strange, to be honest. I'll probably try and reach out to them about that, because I know sometimes with other card games, they put the word sample beneath the grade in the box, kind of like how they put error there and stuff like that. And that's what I was hoping they would do with these, but they didn't. So yeah, I'll have to see if I can get something done there. But the grades are fair enough. These are kind of not really near mint cards, so 7, 5, 8 is completely fair enough. Oh, there's one more card from that 1.5 LOB lot that I had. This one is labeled as faded. I think it's a little bit more faded than the magic cards we had before. You guys can see they write insufficient ink on the back as the qualifier for being an error. And again, this one got a 9 centering when centering isn't bad. It's not necessarily wrong as a 9, but I just feel when you look at some of the other centering grades we get, this should for sure be a 9.5 centering. Next up, we have some slightly faded MRD. First up, an unlimited Karibo. I expected the 8.5 centering on this. It's pretty shifted top to bottom, but it is super clean, and it's nice to see that reflected in these subgrades. 10 edges and corners, and 9.5 surface. All of this stuff, again, will be for sale. One more faded MRD card. This is a unlimited magic jammer. Not sure why this one got a 9 surface, but I guess it might be something to do with the fact that the name is a little bit faded on it. I'm not exactly sure, because in terms of the like actual surface quality, it's for sure pack fresh. But yeah, overall, if I'm comparing CGC to BGS, I mean, I'd say they grade easier, so the cards probably shouldn't be worth as much as the same BGS grade. But it's kind of nice to see them being maybe fairer with cards that are really clean as well. Like I get very few surface grades below a 9 on cards that are clean from CGC, whereas with BGS, sometimes you just get 8.5s even when the card's pack fresh. And you also get a lot more 10s, especially on edges and corners from CGC compared to BGS. Next up is another example of that. Unlimited Summon Skull. It's off center, so that's why I didn't send it to PSA. But it's absolutely pack fresh, very, very clean, so I figured it would get, you know, a 9 with some nice upgrades, and that's exactly what it got. 10 edges, corners, and then the 9.5 surface. One more card from MRD Unlimited. This one didn't quite get a gem, unfortunately. It's just an original Unlimited Harpy Lady Sisters. I was hoping it would get a gem, but it got a 9 on surface. So, I don't know, it probably has a little bit of scratching. I didn't look some of these cards over as closely as I might otherwise, just because they're, you know, not very high value. Some Unlimited Magic Ruler next. This is a Delinquent Duo, which I kind of sent expecting a gem. It got an 8.5 centering, which is another example of CGC, I guess, being harsh on centering. There are some cards with much worse centering than this, which got 9s on centering in this submission. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing to see, because when CGC launched, one of their like selling points was that they were actually going to machine measure centering as like a assistant to just otherwise subjective, you know, trying to judge the eye appeal. And based on my experience grading with them, to be honest, I don't think that's true. I think they just made it up, or at least they don't normally implement it, because there's no way they measured the cards in this submission for the centering with a machine, because you just couldn't get it this wrong if you did. But yeah, it still got a 9 with strong subgrades, so I assume I just about still broke even on the grading cost there. Next card is a Unlimited Summon Skull, a Toon Summon Skull. This one I was hoping for a pristine on. Very, very clean, very well centered. We got 9.5 edges, 9.5 surface. I can't really see anything wrong with either the edges or the surface on this card. It's super, super clean. So I might send it back and get it reviewed, because I assume there's quite a big value difference from that to actually being a pristine or a perfect 10. But at the same time, it is an Unlimited Toon Summon Skull, so I'll have to think about it. All right, next card. Now this is an example of the centering going the other way. So this is a reverse foil Unlimited Tyrant Dragon, and we got a pristine 10, which is insane. I wasn't expecting that at all on this card. But if you guys check out the centering, it got a 10 on centering. And in the midpoint, so if you're looking at like the middle of the card, left to right, I'd say it deserves a 10. Middle of the card, top to bottom, also a 10. But it's very tilted. So at the top, it's like, you know, left to right shifted. At the bottom, it's shifted the other way. And I don't think that really deserves a 10 on centering. Honestly, the reason I didn't send this to PSA was because I figured they wouldn't even give it a PSA 10 with that kind of tilt. But yeah, CGC apparently decided it was fine, and they gave it a 10 on centering, which meant that it got an overall pristine grade, which is very cool. Like, I'll take it for sure, but just looking at that next to some of the other centering grades that we got 9s and 8.5s on, it's kind of hard to understand what the criteria are. All right, next up we have an error. This is a foil shift summon skull. You guys can see it's got a pretty awesome looking foil shift. Lots of like 3D effect going on there with the artwork. This thing is pretty beat, especially on the back. It's got like some creasing, corner issues. Like if I'm selling this raw, I'd probably say it's at least mod play, if not heavy play. But they gave it a 5, which is actually a very solid grade. I'll take that for sure. It's one of those things I just sent more for the sake of having it slapped than getting a specific grade. So yeah, I'll definitely take a 5 all day. Next up, we have a much cleaner foil shift that I got from the same collection. If you guys saw, I had a mail day a while back with a bunch of LOB to AST holos, and these two were just chucked in there as bulk holos. The seller completely missed the fact that they have a pretty sizable foil shift. It's not crazy, like you can get a lot bigger than that. You can get it when it's way down in the effect box and like with a foil bar at the top. but this is still enough to add a lot of value to a card these days. And this one got a 9, which is a very good grade. It's a lot cleaner than the Summon Skull, so it doesn't really surprise me. But yeah, very cool. Happy with a 9 on this one. Next up is a registration error. So that's when the whole surface of the card on one side is shifted because it's misaligned with the other side, essentially. So the back of this Tyrant Dragon is just normal. It's centered and everything. The front is way OC, and then the name is also shifted the same amount, and the foil and the Eye of Anubis. So that's all down to one error rather than multiple errors, which makes it kind of different to being a foil shift or something like that, where it's just a single print layer that gets shifted. So the shift on this one isn't crazy, but since it's a first ed MRD Tyrant Dragon, it's still kind of cool. You can see a bit of a shadow effect with the wings, which I kind of like. And yeah, again, the grade on this was better than I expected. It got an excellent near mint 6, which I wouldn't expect this to get a PSA 6, for example. I'd expect like a 4 or 5. So yeah, for sure, a solid grade to get. Next up, we have a couple of diffusion wave motions. This is actually the copy which I thought was the better copy, but it got an 8 on surface because it has some print dots, which you guys might be able to see it, just like some speckles on each side of the card. Aside from that, it's really, really clean, but it's just got like speckles, which you often get with MFC, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's fair enough. There is a reason for the surface 8. It's not just like a random, 8 for no reason, which I've had from BGS quite a lot in the last year or so. So I won't get too mad about that. It's just a card I was planning on selling anyways, so it's fair enough. And the other copy managed to get the mint 9. Like I said, this one I think was actually a bit less clean, maybe had some scratching on the back, but it didn't have the speckles, so I guess they decided that that was more important than whether it had some light scratching or not. Then we have some LOD first ed holos that I sent. Most of these were just a little bit too OC for a PSA 10, but very, very clean, so I figured they would make sense to send to CGC. First up, Reinforcement of the Army. This got a 9.5 gem mint, and I think the 9 centering is fair on this. It's a little bit shifted. It could get a PSA 10 on a good day, but I figured I'd rather just have it as a kind of easy 9.5 than risk it just getting a 9 and then having to resub it and stuff like that. But yeah, one of my favorite supers from Legacy of Darkness. Next up is Exiled Force. Now this one I did not really expect a gem mint grade on, but it actually got the same grade as the Reinforcement of the Army. If we just bring that one back, you guys should be able to see this one is quite a bit more shifted. Like, I would describe this as pretty badly OC. This wouldn't get a PSA 10, for example. Whereas the Reinforcement, I would say, is considerably less shifted, could get a PSA 10. So it's kind of weird that the same grader would give them the same centering grade. But yeah, that's kind of how CGC seems to go. Now, I think the cards are a little bit out of order because we still have some more LOD. But for now, we're going through PSV with a Grave Robber first ed. Again, just very off-center. What I thought was interesting about this slab is that if a BGS slab had these subgrades, 8 centering, 9, 9, 5, 9, 5, it would be a BGS 8.5. But CGC actually allows you to have a CGC 9 even when the centering is an 8. So that's kind of cool. I don't know if it works for the other subgrades, like if this had 9 centering, 8 surface, if that's a 9 or an 8.5. I don't think they actually spell it out anywhere on their website. But yeah, kind of cool. And I'm glad to have this one as a 9, because if it got an 8.5, that would have been kind of unfortunate. The 8 centering is honestly, it's fair enough. Like it's significantly shifted top to bottom. But yeah, it's cool to see that you can still get mint grades on off-center cards. Next up, more just like clean OC stuff. This one is a Vampire Lord, 2 off-center for a PSA 10, probably 2 off-center for a BGS 9.5, so I just chucked it in here to see how it would do. And it did pretty well. We got 10, 9.5, 9.5 condition subs, and then 8.5 centering, which is totally fair enough given the shift. When I'm like planning to keep stuff, I kind of prefer having it as a 9 with gem mint subgrades, either CGC or BGS, than just a regular PSA 9, because a PSA 9 usually wouldn't be clean enough to get those kind of subgrades. So it just kind of marks it out as being off-center, but actually essentially clean enough for a gem. All right, next up is more of the LOD. Now this is the one which really had me scratching my head a little bit. We got a gem mint on this Tyrant Dragon first at LOD, and if you guys look at the centering on this, it is way off. It's not actually bad for a Tyrant Dragon because that's probably the worst centered card in Legacy of Darkness. But like if we put this next to some of the other stuff we got 9 centering on, it's kind of crazy. Like even just that reinforcement of the army again. The centering is nowhere near the same on those 2 cards. And we even got 9 centering on some of that LOB earlier on in the sub, which if I bring that back, like the Curse of Dragon, I mean, these cards just don't have anything like the same centering. But somehow the same grader gave the same centering grade to both. So yeah, it kind of makes it a bit unpredictable how a card's going to grade, because I didn't think this had any chance for a gem, just because of how off-center it is. And we actually got the gem in, even so. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not complaining. It's cool to have a 9.5 Tyrant Dragon again. I sold my BGS 9.5 a couple years back. But yeah, I think CGC kind of needs to sort out the centering thing a little bit. I thought BGS was bad, but honestly, so far my experience from CGC would suggest that they're even worse for centering than BGS are. All right, one more LOD card. Or actually, I think we still have another one after this. But this is Marauding Captain, ultra rare. This one got a 9.5, and this one I think is fair enough. The centering is probably similar to the reinforcement of the army, where on a good day it could squeak a PSA 10, but I'd rather just play it safe and get this kind of grade from CGC than, risk getting a PSA 9. I thought it was interesting how pretty much every single card from LOD got the exact same condition subs. 9.5 surface, 10 edges, corners. This was the one exception, this fiber jar. This just got a mint 9. Centering is fair enough. It's shifted top to bottom. Honestly, I think it could be an 8.5 centering from a harsher grader. But it got a 9 surface, and I think it's just down to having one print line somewhere at the bottom on the back. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. But yeah, I mean, I think a 9.5 surface would also be fair enough because it's pristine aside from that. But I can always understand it if there's a 9 surface and something that's clearly wrong with the surface. Alright, this is the final card for Legacy of Darkness. I think we have more from LOD than any other set. Pretty much just because LOD has worse centering than any other set. So if you're going to have cards which are clean but OC, this is the most likely set for them to be from. And yeah, this Yamada Dragon got a gem mint grade. Same as most of the other LOD. So overall, I'm very happy. This is easily my favorite card in Legacy of Darkness. Not so much because of the artwork or anything like that. It's just very, very nostalgic to me. I remember trading for one of these way back when it came out, and it was in absolutely trashed condition, like, beyond PSA 1. But I was still just super hyped to get it, just based on how it looked and the name and everything. It's just a, cool card. All right, now next up, this is the one card which had me scratching my head a little bit for the surface grade. This Imperial Order, again off-center, but I thought it was like pack fresh otherwise, and I've had a look at it and I still couldn't see anything that was wrong. There's some stuff on the case, but nothing on the card. So I'm not sure why this one got the 8.5 on surface rather. But at the end of the day, if you send 40 something cards and one card comes back with a surface grade that you're a bit confused about, that's honestly not bad. Like that's a lot better than what you would normally get from BGS or PSA for that matter. And that's the final OG era card, I believe. So next up we have some ultis. I kind of just wanted to see how they would grade these. These are European ultis. So this is a Europrint SOI Demise King of Armageddon. I expected an 8.5 on this. It's not pack fresh. It's got some slight, scratches, print dots, little bits of whitening. And I think the grade makes sense. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with that. Next up, Ruin, Queen of Oblivion. This is the one card I was a bit disappointed with in terms of the handling in the submission. In general, one thing I really like about CGC is that they seem to handle cards a bit more professionally than like PSA and BGS, just in terms of not damaging them, not leaving fingerprints on them and stuff like that. With this card, they did slightly damage the corner, so I will probably contact them about this. But you guys should be able to see the corner is like, you know, hanging off in the case. It happens pretty easily with European print cards. They have those like brittle corners, and then you just flick them with your finger when you're taking them out the sleeve or whatever, and the corner comes off like that. But yeah, from a professional grading company, you still don't expect it. So it is disappointing, and I will see if I can get some kind of compensation or, you know, something like that for this one. The grade is right. I thought it would get a mint 9. I didn't expect a gem, but it's just a shame to have to look at it with the corner hanging off in the case. One more ulti. This is a Banisher of the Radiance from Enemy of Justice. Again, you guys can see that nice European foiling on it. And I think a 9 is the right grade on this. It's arguably clean enough for a gem, but the centering is pretty far shifted left to right. So I knew this wouldn't get a PSA 10, and I just chucked it in here because of that. In general, this is one of the hardest sets to get a gem on in Europrint EOJ. It's a lot harder than, like, you know, TLM, CRV, EN, SOI. The print quality really just got a lot worse between Shadow of Infinity and Enemy of Justice in terms of how much whitening they have on the back. And finally, we just have a few promos to go through. I sent a full set of FL1, and they all got mint 9s. 10 edges corners on both the Blue-Eyes and the Dark Magician, but surface on all of them was 9 or lower, which is maybe a little bit harsh. I believe these were pack fresh cards, but they're kind of hard to grade because of how they were packaged in the blisters, so there may be a little bit of, you know, factory residue on the back surface or, you know, print line somewhere. So overall, I'm fine with those. They were kind of off-center as well, so I knew they wouldn't get PSA 10s if I sent them there. And the final card, this is one that I sent, again, clean but off-center. And I was hoping this would get all pristine condition subs because it's printed in Japan and it's very, very clean. And we actually got it. So this is the Wing Karibo GX1 Wing King promo. Very cool card. I think it's kind of underrated. I mean, it's not very rare because they always printed a ton of video game promos, but it's just a very cool card to look at. And we got it. We got the pristine 10 surface, corners, and edges. Centering got an 8.5, which is honestly fair enough, but for example, this for sure has better centering than the Tyrant Dragon we looked at earlier. So if I was going to get lucky on centering for one card, it would have been nice for it to be this one, because that would have been gem mint. But I'm still fine with it as it is. Just a cool card to look at, and it's nice to get those all pristine condition subgrades, which I think this is the only card I've graded with CGC so far where they've given me that. Maybe the Dark Magician pristine from my previous return as well. But yeah, that pretty much brings us to the end of this video, guys. Hope you found it interesting. Hope you learned something about grading with CGC. Overall, the more I grade with them, I would say the more I enjoy grading with them. They still have a lot of issues with, well, centering for one thing, but also the labeling of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like all the wavy, glossy stuff. Some of the way they label errors and other things like that, I think they have a lot of work to do. But in terms of how they handle the cards, in terms of not damaging the cards, in terms of not giving insanely harsh grades, I think they honestly do a good job. And I'm kind of thinking about making a video soon about PSA, BGS, CGC in 2022, because I have a PSA versus BGS video from a couple years back, but the grading scene is very different nowadays to what it was back then, both in terms of PSA and BGS, and obviously in terms of CGC now entering the field as well. But yeah, with that being said, we've reached the end of this video, so thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you guys next time.